Campaign 2020 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Quick Trip, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, and Wisconsin Operating Engineers Local 139.
Kerry Trask of Manitowoc is a Democratic candidate in the 25th Assembly District. Kerry, welcome to WisconsinEye.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
Could you summarize what you consider your top one or two campaign issues, please?
Top two. Well, top one is I'm really concerned about families, especially working families in this region. Times have been really tough on them, and I would guess my first priority is to see that everybody gets affordable health care. I think we should accept the Medicaid expansion funds and have a system that includes everybody in health care coverage. Well, my second one is to repeal policies that are designed to eliminate good paying, family supporting union jobs. That'd be my one and two, I think.
Okay. Is that a reference to, do you want to go back and repeal Act 10?
Well, I'd like to modify Act 10. I think I'd certainly want to repeal right to work, and I'd like to reinstate the prevailing wage laws.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the pandemic that unfortunately is gripping the nation in Wisconsin. The governor's statewide mask edict is scheduled to expire on September 28th. Let me ask you, do you have a position on whether it should be extended for public safety reasons?
Yeah, I do. I think the Republicans from the top down, from Trump all the way down, and in Wisconsin particularly, have really mishandled this thing, and we're really in a mess. Yesterday we had over 800 new cases, and I look at other places. For example, in Ontario, there were only 57 new cases, and it's much larger with a much higher population. And I don't think I'd advocate for all these other places do, but I do think certainly the mask thing is just a no-brainer, it seems to me. And I think it shouldn't be left up to sheriffs to make up their mind whether they're going to enforce it or not. And I think it, in fact, should be enforced.
Okay. There's concerns that because of the pandemic, state tax collections in the current budget year, which ends June 30, will be short. I'm making up a number. If we're $1 billion short in tax collections, do you think we should cut spending, or should we consider raising taxes or fees?
Well, these aren't normal times, and there's more on the table now than there usually is. I'm really waiting for the United States Senate to act on the COVID-19 Relief Act #2. I wouldn't prematurely say either or. I'd fight like the devil not to raise taxes, because that would slow down the recovery. I mean, I really do think that we have two things happening simultaneously. So, the recovery is really important to get underway, which can't happen unless we get the plague under control. But I'd be reluctant to increase taxes. I'd like to see more relief come from the federal government. And if necessary, I think we should cut some spending.
Okay, understand. We've all seen the role that hospitals play to treat COVID-19 patients. So if you're in the legislature voting on the next state budget, should hospitals be an even greater priority than they may be in the current budget, Kerry?
Yeah, I definitely think they should. And I think especially rural and small town hospitals, which are really the only defense that people have against sickness of all kinds. And they're under special pressure now. staff, for equipment, for funding, and they can't play the market system like the big hospitals can in Milwaukee and Dane County, and even in Oshkosh and La Crosse. So I really think that people throughout Wisconsin, especially in the areas where population is smaller, really need to have the security of having available health care, available hospital care, secured for them. So I do think that we really need to look at this. In fact, I think, we really should comprehensively look at the whole way we deliver health care in Wisconsin and try to make a system out of a patchwork quilt, right, that we have right now.
Okay. Senator Kappinger last week introduced a bill that said, if you're a business or an organization and you follow COVID-19 protocols to protect your patients, employees, or customers, you should be exempt from COVID lawsuits. Do you think we need this law?
I think we don't need this law. I think that, they always use the phrase trivial lawsuits and then never define what the word trivial means. I think certainly in the case of the packing house industry, packing plant industry, they put workers at terrible risk. They put whole communities at terrible risk, and I don't think that's at all trivial. I think that if they really put their own profits and that way ahead of the welfare of the people working there, or the people who live in the communities, I think that they shouldn't have immunity.
The whole issue of policing reform. There's the speaker's going to form a task force. Governor Evers has a 9-bill package. Senator Wangard of Racine, a retired police officer, has his own bills. The Black Caucus has bills. So my question is, what policing reforms do you think are necessary?
For the most part, I really think the police do a fantastic job with a real difficult assignment. I think that some reforms are necessary to protect citizens, but I think some reforms are necessary in order to protect the police institutions. I mean, public confidence has got to be restored in them, and to just sort of hardline it and say, well, we're not going to be accountable and we don't want any changes, I think is very detrimental to the legitimacy of police authority. And I think that no chokeholds and no-knock warrants, eliminating those, would be a good step forward, I think. I mean, I think that the best thing that could happen is that the police union and the police officers and even the Republican Party could say, look, let's cool down about this. Let's work some stuff out. Let's improve the environment here, and I think it'd go a long way to make the police departments much more secure and less on the defensive if they themselves said, yes, we'll make some changes. What do you suggest? Or what do you want? And I think that, gaveling in and gaveling out is just not the way to run the people's business on this one.
As states around Wisconsin legalize medical and recreational marijuana, what's your position?
Certainly medical. I have a daughter-in-law that's epileptic and, just would not be able to function without it. She fortunately lives in Florida. And for a while, a while back, had trouble getting medical marijuana to help her health situation. So I'm definitely, 100% in favor of that. And we're the only state in the upper Midwest that hasn't done that so far. As far as recreational, the chickens have not all come home to roost for me on this one yet. I'm, a little bit adverse to the idea of another thing adding to to the mix. I mean, Wisconsin is a society that does a lot with alcohol, and we have problems with that. I mean, we have people who have impaired driving things charges 4 and 5 times on them. I don't know. I'm really much more interested in the public safety than I am in like rushing into. And I certainly wouldn't advocate it as a way of just raising revenue. I think we have to be better stewards of the revenue that we get. So I'm not closed-minded about it. I think that it might do some real good if we decriminalized it, decriminalized the use of it. We'd have fewer people incarcerated. We'd be able to lessen the costs of the penal system, and we'd be able to help people go on with constructive lives.
The debate in the Capitol over who should draw the next congressional and legislative district lines. The governor has recommended a People's Maps Commission, which would forward a plan to the legislature, but the Constitution says that the party in power should do it. Where do you stand on that debate?
Well, it's not a debate to me. I mean, I'm really a person who's committed to continuing the progressive tradition, that was started by the 1911 state legislature and Bob La Follette, and I moved to Wisconsin because it was a democratic place. I mean, not big D democratic, but I really always have admired Wisconsin for it being the laboratory for democracy. So it's no debate with me. I mean, what we got now rigs every legislative election there is. They're not fair. They don't reflect any kind of sensible allotment of people. They result in the Democrats who have been pretty consistently winning statewide elections by, well, in the case of Tammy Baldwin, pretty good, and a pretty good margin, and certainly Jill
Krofsky, the Supreme Court.
Krofsky, yeah, and even under adverse conditions. But boy, we have the legislative elections, and they end up with 67, and we end up with 35 or something, and it's not a surprise because it's so incredibly fixed. I mean, I'm surprised the courts didn't do their responsibility and do for Wisconsin what they did for Pennsylvania. I do think that we should have a neutral, nonpartisan, just non-political, board that does this work. And I think if it requires a constitutional amendment, I bet we could get it.
Okay.
If it just requires a
statute,
a court case, I don't know if a court case would. Okay. But I think it's definitely got to be changed.
We're a high property tax state, which is why schools and local governments have been living with limits on what they can levy in property taxes for more than 20 years. If you're in the Capitol voting on the next state budget, would you continue these caps and limits on property taxes?
Yeah, I would. I think property taxes, there's way too much reliance on property taxes. And in many cases, they're pretty high. Although I find living in Manitowoc, they're pretty reasonable in this part of the woods. But I do think caps are a good idea. But I think the current caps are way too restrictive, and that's led to school systems having referendums all over the state, most of which pass. Most of the citizens, if the school system makes a decent argument, most of the citizens, accept it and vote in favor of referendums. But I do think that, the caps are one side of a 1-2 knockout punch. We should have caps. They should be maybe less restrictive, less restraining at this point. And we also need a better deal on revenue sharing. I think the Republicans are always eager to cut taxes, especially for the people that have a lot of money. We're pretty thin on revenue right now, as you pointed out in one of the earlier questions. I think maybe some better revenue sharing would do the whole body politic a lot of good and keep the taxes down for people who are living in families or living alone in the towns and cities across the state who are really currently struggling. I don't want to add to their burdens, but we do have to have good schools.
Do villages, cities, and towns, do they need new revenue options? I'm reminded that the city of Milwaukee is pushing a bill that would, if they pass a referendum, give them a chance to levy a half-cent sales tax.
We've been around about that in Manitowoc County, and the county board decided not to do it, although there was pretty strong pressure to do it. But in all the cases that I'm aware of, in the counties around here, the reason why they wanted to do that was they needed to fix the roads. They didn't have enough revenue to really deal with, bad roads that everybody was complaining about, and was not conducive to, kind of the regular movement of the economy. I think we really have to kind of finally, put up or shut up about road support in this state. I mean, I know there's Governor Evers wants to increase the gasoline tax very substantially to deal with the highways, and I think that in turn is, maybe is not a thing that's conducive to the recovery of the economy. Not just, and it'd add cost to everything, and so it's like an additional sales tax on so much. Anything that needs to be hauled, anything that needs roads, and that's everything. So I think we really do need to think about how we're going to do this and really be grown-ups about it. And I'm not looking for any kind of political career. I'm in my late 70s. So I mean, I feel like that gives me a tremendous amount of independence, and I could vote for any bill that even if my caucus doesn't like it, that would really solve some of these problems. I'm not into this just to get reelected. I mean, who knows? I'm not, like I say, I'm not looking to make this a long-term thing, but I really do feel like some things have got to be faced, and solutions have got to be arrived at.
If a school board or local government plans a major public works project, should they have to give a preference to Wisconsin companies? There was a study that said in 2015, out-of-state contractors for public works contracts got $72 million. That went to $146 million in 2018. Should local governments have to give Wisconsin businesses a preference?
Well, I think it's, normally I'd like to see the market system do its work, and I'd like to see school districts and local governments, get good quality on the lowest bid. I think the one big factor that's made it very, very uncompetitive for Wisconsin contractors is the end of prevailing wage. We still have a pretty strong union state here in terms of the skilled trades, and that's a good thing, I think, because it results in well-trained workers. It results in good quality work. It costs a little more, but without a state contractors coming in, with untrained people and paying lower wages, it's just not a competitive, equal playing field. And I do think that I wouldn't go for like a kind of a quota system or necessarily a favor system. But I would like to see the playing field made much more level, and provide Wisconsin contractors and workers with a real shot at big public projects.
Then final question, differences between you and your November 3 opponent?
Well, I already alluded to that. I'm not a professional politician, never wanted to be, taught history for most of my life, virtually all my adult life. And I'm retired and will in fact take a cut in pay if I get elected, or when I get elected, I guess I should say. But the deal is that frees me up. That frees me up a lot. I mean, I generally agree with what the Democrats are talking about. I'm not always in agreement with everything. My focus is going to be what's good for the people, the families, the people, the small businesses and the farms in the 25th district. And sometimes I may not vote with the caucus. My opponent, on the other hand, he likes the job a lot, and it's a pretty simple job for him. He just has to do what Robin Voss says they're going to do, and his record is like just time and time and time again, just going with the caucus, which in some ways is a kind of a betrayal, I think, of the calling of being a representative. I mean, what do you represent? A party? What do you represent? I'd like to represent the people of the 25th district. And I'm not doing it for the money. I'm not doing it for the career. I really am doing it because I think it's high time it was done.
Thank you. Kerry Trask of Manitowoc, is a Democratic candidate in the 25th Assembly District. The election is November 3rd. Kerry, thank you for talking to WisconsinEye.
Thank you very much. This was a good session.
Thank you.
Campaign 2020 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Quick Trip, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, and Wisconsin Operating Engineers Local 139.